Continuation of the Maimer V'Heinif Yodei Al Anar, which is discussing the Maila of Mashiach, and with what we specifically describe Mashiach, with the fact that Moirach V'Doin, that he can judge based on smell. And the question was, how does one judge based on smell? Usually when a person judges, he judges based on something that he understands, something that he realizes, understanding, seeing, etc. And here we're saying it's not by what he sees, it's not by what he hears, but rather by his smell. Moreover, we're saying that this is what Mashiach is all about. This is the description of Mashiach, to the extent that when we talk about other things, like Chachma and Bina, the wisdom and understanding of Mashiach, we only talk about the positive. Whereas when we talk about smell, we say that it's not through other ways, but specifically through smell, which means that this is the essence of what Mashiach is all about, to the extent that when the Chachamim wanted to test if Bar Koich was Mashiach or not, this is the one and only thing that they tested him. They checked to see if he's able to judge based on smell. And what we explained in the Maimer is we began to explain the difference between eating and drinking and smelling. We spoke about this last time, but let's try and explain it a little bit more now. When a person eats and drinks, it's something that strengthens the chayus, the sustenance of his neshama and the connection between his soul and his body. Whereas the smell is something which is able to renew and bring back that chayus when it's lacking. Let's look at a mashal, an example. Let's say a person in a car and the battery in the car is weak. The battery in the car it dies. How does one start it? How do you restart it? You take cables and you give it strength in order to restart it. Now why does that happen? Because the battery didn't really die. The battery is there. Everything that's necessary is there. It even has the power inside it. The only thing that's lacking is it's not catching on. It's not catching on. You give it a little jolt and it manages to catch on. But let's say the battery was completely dead. Let's say the battery totally had no electricity in it whatsoever. You would have to renew, either buy a new battery or go to a mechanic where he can reinstate, bring something new in order to reinstate and renew the electricity that's lacking. And it's the same thing with a person's life. As we explained last time, there's two opposites, the neshama and the guf. There's the physical existence, the spiritual existence. The way a person lives is through the connection of these two opposites together. But this connection is something that essentially is already there. The neshama and the body have been connected to each other. The neshama sustains the body despite it being the opposite. But because the neshama and the body are two opposites, that's why at times there becomes a weakening. At times the person is weak, or the person is sick, Rahmanul Islam, or something of the like. How do we change that? How do we reconnect? It's not bringing a new chayas. You're not bringing the soul down. The soul is there, the body is there. Because they're opposites, they're not strongly connected the way they should be. Food and drink. And the same thing is in a normal sickness, there's medicine, which is also food and drink. A pill or a medicine, which is a drink. These are all things which are connected to food and drink, because food and drink go into the body. And as we learned according to Chassidus and Kabbalah, not only do they go into the body, but Mafli last says there's this spark that's inside the food that also goes to the soul. It's a spiritual spark. Now let's look at how that spark that's inside the food, how does it sustain the food? The spark that's inside the food isn't something which is godliness that's above the food. This is the godly spark that sustains the food, that is connected to the food. And that's why what it can do now for the soul and body of the person is only to re-strengthen something that exists already, something that's there and just needs re-strengthening. And there's another aspect. Sometimes a person can faint. When a person faints, that means that his sustenance, his soul has become hidden in a way that it needs something new. It needs to reach the essence, bring down something new, something that isn't there beforehand. You can't do it through food. Just like the battery of the car, you can't do it with the cables. Because it's not there anymore. It's gone. It went away. Now you need something stronger, something deeper, and that something deeper is smell. Why is smell that something deeper? What is food and what is smell? Food and drink are something that we eat and we make it become part of us. But in order to become part of us, there has to be an us. There has to be my physical existence, my spiritual existence, then they can go together. When they're lacking, smell is not something which I'm taking it into me. It's something that surrounds me, something that's above me. Something that's beyond me. And therefore something that's beyond me reaches the essence of the soul. And this is also the idea that we explained. That's why when Hashem brought the soul into the body, He didn't do it through the mouth. He did it rather through the nose. Through the nose is where the essence, the soul itself comes in. When there was no soul and now there is a soul, that had to come through the nose. And that's also the idea of what we learned the other day, the explanation of the halacha in Hilchos Shabbos. When a person, one checks the pulse in his feet, in his hands, even in his heart, if there is no pulse in any of these places, that still doesn't mean that the person is dead. That means that the soul and the sustenance and the life is not properly going and sustaining every single limb of his body. However, it's still possible to make what we call today artificial respiration or other types of ways in order to bring back that soul which is still there. How do we know that it's not there anymore if it's not in the nose? Because the nose, when the soul is only in the nose, when the person is still breathing through his nose, that doesn't mean that he's fully alive and healthy. His heart isn't working, he can't continue living like this. But there's still something there that can be brought into the rest of the body. But if it's not there in the nose, the place where the soul comes into, that means it's not there at all. It's the difference between the essence of the soul and the sustenance of the soul that continues to sustain the person. And that's the idea of the difference between food and drink and smell. And that's also why we say that it's brought down that the mouth is the gateway for the heart and the nose is the gateway for the brain. Now seemingly, the mouth is also the gateway for the brain. When we say the mouth is the gateway for the heart, that means that when a person speaks, he expresses his emotions. He arouses his emotions. There's both expressing the emotions, the feelings, the emotions of the heart. They're expressed through the mouth. And not only are they expressed through the mouth, but as we've learned in Chassidus, it says that when a person speaks, he actually strengthens those emotions. Something which is brought down in Chassidus, but it's something which is obvious that when a person speaks, when a person feels an emotion like love, and when he speaks and he expresses it, it makes it greater. That's why davening has to be spoken. For trying to love Hashem, that's the whole idea of davening. We should think about it. What's the point of saying the words? Does Hashem need us to say it? we're saying the words, and not only saying them, but saying them in a way that our ears can hear them, because we say, Koil Ma'orer HaKavana. The voice arouses the intent. The voice arouses the emotional feelings. When a person speaks out loud, until to the extent that on the halacha is that Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, even though usually when we daven Shemini Esrei, we have to daven quietly to show that we don't think that Hashem needs us to daven out loud, and in addition, not to disturb the people around us. Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, when everyone's davening from the Siddur, and the other aspect of showing that we don't believe that Hashem needs our voice, nevertheless, it's still important, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, to daven out loud, because we want to arouse our kavanah properly. The voice arouses the emotion and expresses the emotion. But the question is, seemingly, the peh, the mouth, also expresses one's intellect. And we also see clearly that when a person speaks and explains an idea, it makes it become more understood for the person. So why do we say that the peh, the mouth, is the gateway to the heart? Seemingly it's the gateway to the mind as well. And the answer is that the idea of the mind, that the mouth is the gateway to, is not the essence of the mind. It's not the mind itself. It's not the intellect itself. It's the intellectual, the capacity of giving over the intellect to someone else, explaining it to another person, or even explaining it to myself as if I was another person. But the essence of the intellect, unlike emotions that are connected with another person, the intellect is something which is connected to the person themselves. And that's not the mouth, because the mouth is the expression, the way we express it to someone else. So when we talk about the essence, the mouth is the expression of the emotions, because emotions connect with someone else. But the nose is the gateway to the brain. And the reason why it's the nose that's the gateway to the brain is because the brain is connected with the essence of the person. The brain is connected with who I am. The brain is connected with thinking for myself, with the very essence of what the soul is all about. And that's the difference between speech and smell. Speech, as well as eating and drinking, are things that are connected with something that's there already. It's there already, has to be strengthened, has to be transmitted, etc. Whereas the nose, the power of smell, is something which is connected to the depth of the brain, to the very essence of the soul. We find that if we'll understand it the way it is in a person, but let's look at it the way it is in the Avodah of the Beis HaMikdash. In the Avodah of the Beis HaMikdash, there's two types of karbanis. There's karbanis that are called karbani lachmi, they're like Hashem's food. Those are brought on the Mizbeach HaChitza and the outer Mizbeach. That's the interaction between godliness and the world. We're elevating the physical world. It's an amazing thing. It says it causes reach nichaychi, it causes, so to speak, pleasure for Hashem. The fact that we're elevating the physical world, but yet it's not the inner essence. That's why it's the outer mizbeach. It's on the outside. It's all the outer connection between godliness and the world. Ktoires, on the other hand, which is connected to smell, that's something which is brought on the inner mizbeach, to the extent that on Yom Kippur, when the Kohen Gadol is in the Kodesh HaKadoshim, when he's in the Holy of Holies, what does he do over there? He brings Ktoires, because Ktoires means something that reaches the very inner essence, that smell. And the difference is between Pnimi and Makif. Pnimi is connecting something on the inside. Makif is a new thing. Let's look at it also in the idea of the difference between when there's the chayas, the sustenance that sustains something, that's pnimi. Like that spark of godliness that's in the food. It's inside it. It's part of it. It's part of what it really is. then you can have something which is the idea of bringing a new sustenance. Or the sustenance, the godliness that's above it, that's called makif. Now in a person, in the soul of a person, we have the nefesh, ruach, and neshama, which those are called the koiches pnimiyim. Nefesh is the power of action, ruach is the power of emotions, and even neshama is the power of intellect. But intellect, the way it connects inside the person, part of what the person is. Then we have the soul, the essence of this soul, the very essence of what it's all about. That's called chaye yechida. Those express themselves in a person's will. The soul wants. In a person's pleasure, the soul has pleasure. That's the essence of the soul. Mitzvah Hashem, tomorrow, next time we'll continue on Be'ezras Hashem to explain this.